and welcome back to my channel. Last week I uploaded a video that was all about the books that I read in 2021, and today's video is going to be in the same vein where I'm going to be talking about all the TV shows I watched in 2021. In my last video, I only talked about 6 books and it was kind of a long video, so since I'm talking about 13 different TV shows in this video, I'm going to really try to fly through all of them. But if you want some more detailed commentary on each of the shows I'm talking about, you should definitely go and check out my Medium article, which will be in the description of this video. By the way, if I'm going to talk about any spoilers, there will be a thing that comes up on the video and a timestamp that'll tell you where to skip to. First show on our list is Stalker. This is a pretty short and concise docuseries, which is great because as much as I love true crime, I hate when shows kind of drag it on and on and on and go on a bunch of different tangents. I thought this was a very well-made show, but if you get squeamish very easily from seeing murder scenes on the screen, if you feel like you might feel uncomfortable from even hearing about some of the things that this guy did, skip this. This is probably the most detailed exploration of the crimes of Richard Ramirez, so if you are interested in that, this is definitely the series to check out. Spoilers ahead, so skip to this timestamp. I love the way that Richard Ramirez was caught, like the entire town that he was in just like all ganged up on him and decided collectively that they were gonna stop the serial killer. I also cannot believe that Dianne Feinstein, who is mayor or governor or whatever, gave the public all the information about the shoes. Like that was the one thing that the cops had. Good girl, Apple. The second show that I watched this year was Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. This is really good. I first learned about the mysterious case of Elisa Lam from a BuzzFeed Unsolved video a few years ago that seriously disturbed me, but I really feel like, without any spoilers, after watching this limited series, I have a better understanding of what probably happened to her. So if you wanted to learn more about the mysterious, maybe not so mysterious death of Elisa Lam, this is a really in-depth show. You get to learn all about her upbringing, some of her struggles right before she died. You get to learn about the actual Cecil Hotel and all the different things that happened there, how Richard Ramirez actually stayed there while he was on his massive killing spree. It's just very fascinating. Third show I watched this year was WandaVision. So I'm saying this after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and Hawkeye have all come out, and I still think that WandaVision is probably my favorite Marvel Disney Plus series out of all of those. I love Elizabeth Olsen and I can't wait to see her in the new Doctor Strange movie. I think the chemistry between Elizabeth and Paul Bettany was really strong. I mean, it always has been, but it's just so nice that they get to have their own show and Vision gets to come back and just be alive. Well, sort of. You'll see. If you hear sounds, it's Pancake chewing on a toy. But even though there are some things that Wanda did that are like morally questionable, I think it was a really good look at grief and how grief has affected Wanda, how it affects the way she relates to people, and ways that we often try to manipulate situations because of our grief and because we are not doing a good job of processing. Without any spoilers, I do think that there were a lot of loose ends at the end of the show that really could have been tied up better. I wish certain characters like Monica were given a little bit more thought, but overall it was a really exciting series to watch as all the episodes were coming out week after week, and it was a lot of fun being part of like the WandaVision TikTok community. Fourth show I watched this year was The Ripper. If you couldn't tell, I love true crime. Compared to Cecil Hotel and compared to Stalker, I feel like this wasn't really a standout docuseries, but I do think it's really cool that somewhere in the middle of the series, as they're talking about the Ripper's killing spree, they talk about how there was a curfew specifically for women at a certain time because they were scared for women's safety. But really, like, if they thought that the Ripper was a man, then shouldn't all the men have a curfew placed on them so that women can walk down the street and enjoy their lives at night safely? Or maybe the curfew should just be for everyone in general. If no one's outside, maybe the Ripper won't be able to snatch people off the street. Also, I really like that they talked about how because a lot of the women who were murdered by the Ripper were sex workers, their cases weren't treated as seriously. And it's just like, sex workers are just as worthy of living as the rest of us. Even if you judge the way that they live their lives, even if you would not live that kind of lifestyle, of course they don't deserve to be murdered. Of course they deserve justice. Anyway, the fifth show on this list is Kim's Convenience. Now, this is a show that I started in 2020, but I ended up finishing it this year because it ended this year. Kim's Convenience is without a doubt one of my favorite shows of all time now. I really feel like Kim's Convenience is what Fresh Off the Boat tried to be, but Kim's just really executed everything almost flawlessly. I'm also kind of proud that I can say I knew who Simu Liu was before Shang-Chi. Flex. I'm really sad that the show ended the way that it did, that stuff... Hi, baby. That stuff that happened behind the scenes affected the story that Kim's was trying to tell. But I'm just glad that Kim's exists at all and that it has changed so many lives for the better, including mine. Spoilers ahead, so go to this timestamp. That last episode, not it. I really wanted to see Appa and Jung reconcile, but because I knew how the show was ending, I knew I wouldn't get that. So I wasn't like super disappointed that I didn't see that happen. But Shannon and Jung did not have to break up. And I also feel like by the end of the show, you really don't see that much character development in Janet, and I really wanted to love Janet and I wanted to see her thrive and succeed. And throughout the show, you just see that she's kind of an indecisive character, and that's not really resolved by the end either, in my opinion, or at least in like a strong enough way. I'm really glad that Kim's convenience resonated with so many people, including myself, and I really hope that all the actors on the show, even apart from Simu, get lots of great work after this. The 6th show on this list is Gilmore Girls, which I also started last year but finished this year. This is also now one of my favorite shows of all time. Gilmore Girls is just comfort and home and warmth to me, and I just love having it on all the time. I think that even though Lorelai and Rory are both immature in a lot of ways, you can see some character development, you can see growth and maturity in different aspects of both of their lives. I think even though no one talks as fast as they do, and I'm pretty sure no one consumes as much coffee as they do either, you can really see yourself in a lot of the characters. Like, they just felt very real. And for me, growing up in a small town, I definitely like understood the Stars Hollow vibe, where everyone like knew everyone's business and everything. And this is not a spoiler, but even though Amy Sherman Palladino was not attached to the last season, I do agree with some of the choices that Rory ended up making. I feel like they were very empowering. It was really like, this is the kind of woman that Lorelai raised her to be. 7th show that I watched this year was Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. I hated this. I think I do love that Amy got to go back and like basically finish the show how she wanted to finish it, but overall, spoilers ahead, so jump to this timestamp. I feel like a lot of things in this series were really unnecessary. I feel like Lorelai definitely did not have to go across the country and like find herself wild style. I understood what Amy was trying to do with Rory, where she tried to depict what a lot of millennials are going through right now, which is like going to school for a degree and then not really using it, or using it but you're not as successful as you think you would be. Not being able to deal with and process failure in a healthy way. Like, these are all real things that people my age and older I think are definitely going through. But man, it was really hard to see Rory hook up with an engaged Logan. It was hard to see her show up to that job interview like super entitled. And even though I think it was a beautiful thing to want to write a story about her and her mom's life together, it was also really entitled for her to just assume that like Lorelai would be comfortable with Rory sharing all of these intimate details about her life. Also, the Stars Hollow musical, I'd rather never speak about it again. But despite all of those things, I did love seeing Luke and Lorelai finally get married. I'm just really happy that they ended up together. The 8th show that I watched this year was Loki. I think this was good. I think there was a lot of talking, there was a lot of information being thrown at me that I didn't necessarily process all the way through every single episode. But I do really like Tom Hiddleston. I do really like Owen Wilson. Like, I know that he's had some personal struggles, so I'm really rooting for him to just like get back on the horse and do well in his acting career. Also, Gugu, she's amazing. I think it was a good setup for like other things that are gonna happen in the MCU, but I don't know if I loved it. The 9th show that I watched this year is What If. I honestly don't really like animated things, so I wasn't planning on watching this, and I was really only gonna watch it because David was watching it. I ended up really liking this, and I think out of all of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, this might be my second favorite. Although I do admit, when I first heard the premise, I was like, this is just a cash grab. Like, Marvel is just trying to like milk as much as they can out of the characters from the last phase before they fully retire them. But I do understand its purpose, and it was really good at setting up the multiverse, which is what Marvel is really going to be exploring in the next few movies. I think it got better as it went on. Like, I feel like the first episode was probably the weakest, but it got really good. I love that Chadwick is in like 3 episodes. Rest in peace. So awesome that he was in this show. I have some more thoughts about specific episodes, but I'm not gonna say them here. I don't want to make this video too long, so check out my Medium article. The 10th show that I watched this year is LulaRich. I will eat up any and all content about multi-level marketing schemes, so when I heard that this came out from my friend Amanda, I was on it. I really think I binged this in like less than 24 hours. It's always unfortunate to see how MLMs kind of prey on women, especially since a lot of these women are stay-at-home moms that maybe used to have a career and are looking for something to just give them purpose again. They want to feel like they're working hard on their career and bringing money home and contributing in a meaningful way. But a lot of the women that join join these MLMs don't actually have the money that is needed to sustain a career in it. There's such a small percentage of women who actually make it, and it's just like this unrealistic dream that's being sold to lots of women who are like being manipulated. But anyway, this was a really solid docuseries, and if you like bashing MLMs like I do, or if you feel like honestly you might get sucked into one day, you should watch this. The next show on the list is Squid Game. This was so good. I honestly think that it deserved all the hype that it got, and I wasn't planning on watching this because I saw from the trailer how bloody it was, but I honestly feel like even for me, someone who's sensitive to blood and gore, it wasn't that bad. I am really glad that it was expanded from originally being a movie to then a TV show that is going to get multiple seasons, but without spoiling anything, I don't love the way that the show ended. I feel like it was just a setup so that there could be a season 2. This first season was so strong that I honestly don't know if I'm gonna like the second season. Side note, the show is called Squid Game, not Squid Games. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Spoilers ahead, so jump to this timestamp. I don't think that Junho is dead, especially because we didn't see his dead body. So just like with Ilnam dying, I really don't think that Junho is dead. I would like to see more of him, but I feel like season 2 is just gonna be like him and Gion teaming up, and then it's gonna be sort of like Peninsula was to Train to Busan, and that Peninsula was very bad. I feel like season 2 is gonna be about taking down the big man who's in charge of Squid Game, and I wouldn't be as interested in that, I think. There are a lot of really crazy videos on YouTube that tie a lot of things throughout the series together, so I would definitely recommend watching some of those if you like those kind of Easter eggy kind of conspiracy theory things. For starters, I saw a YouTube video about how the way that all the characters die in the show is actually foreshadowed in the first time that you meet them. And then I also saw a video about a theory that Ilnam is actually Gion's dad. And there are some small details sprinkled throughout the show that kind of support this theory, so let me know in the comments if you believe that that might be true. The next show that I watched this year was Only Murders in the Building Season 1. If you know me, you probably know that I love Selena Gomez, so obviously this was on my to-watch list. Thankfully, this was a really good show, and it was very highly reviewed, and everyone seemed to really like it. And I also like Steve Martin and Martin Short, so I'm really glad that all of this just kind of worked out for them. There were a lot of really interesting twists and turns, and I think that the premise of this show is really unique. If you don't know the premise, basically Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez's characters all live in this apartment building in New York City. One night there is a murder that happens in the building. Through a chance encounter, the three of them find out that they all love true crime podcasts and they decide to start their own. That's a really basic overview of the show. There's a lot more that happens. You get to see how different characters are tied to the murder in different ways. That's also not really a spoiler. I feel like you can probably guess that that would happen. And yeah, it was really good, and I'm super excited for season 2. The next show on the list is Scenes from a Marriage, which was an HBO limited series. This show is really intense, and I think that it'll hit you a lot harder if you are married or in a long-term relationship like I am. Scenes from a Marriage was adapted from a stage play, and so each episode is sort of like a scene from a play. So the show follows the relationship of the two protagonists, Jonathan and Mira, played by Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain, both absolutely incredible actors. And each episode has like several months or even years, maybe? I think it's usually months, like between them. So you really get to see how this relationship evolves or devolves. I don't know. And people might see the trailer and think that this is a little too much like Marriage Story, but I personally think it is stronger and just better because it is a limited series and you get to see these characters really fleshed out a lot more. Hello. Oh. Spoilers ahead, skip to this timestamp. I was sort of rooting for Mira in that you could see that she was really finding her voice and finding ways to better speak up for herself, but I also generally hated her. I found myself siding with Jonathan basically the entire series. I do understand why they wanted to make the last episode the way that it was, because even though they were divorced, there was such like a pure love for each other and that there weren't really expectations anymore. They weren't really getting mad at each other anymore. It was just like they have this soul tie to each other. And whether or not you agree with like the moral implications of how they ended up, I can see why the writers would want them to end up that way. The last full show that I watched this year was Hawkeye. I think that the show was entertaining, but it was overall kind of weak. Oh my gosh, I just realized I did not talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is by far the weakest show out of all the Marvel shows that have come out on Disney+. I guess I'll jump back to that after I finish talking about Hawkeye. So if you don't know, Hawkeye follows Clint Barton, which is Hawkeye, but I feel like the main protagonist is actually Haley Steinfeld's character, Kate Bishop, who is a pretty new character introduced to the MCU. I won't say anything else about the show and where it goes and what it's about. Before I get into spoilers, again, I thought the show was just okay. I was excited to see it every week because I like Haley and I like Jeremy. But yeah, it was fine. Spoilers now, so jump to this timestamp. Florence Pugh. Hands down, Yelena was the best part of the show. I don't know if they're making a season 2, but I feel like I will be watching not because the story is compelling, but because I just like the actors. Also, are we supposed to like Jack now? Because he was super irritating. Okay, now I guess I'm gonna jump back to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Overall, pretty weak. I thought they were trying to be like woke in a bunch of different ways that didn't work. I like Sebastian Stan, I like Anthony Mackie, I wanted them to succeed. Unfortunately, I just felt like it was boring. I felt like the stakes weren't super high. I didn't really root for anybody. The new Captain America was so irritating. Literally, anytime he showed up on screen, I wanted to leave the room. If you're not super into the MCU, I feel like you could skip this show. Okay, well, those are all the shows that I watched in 2021. Since this is my last video of the year, Happy New Year! And I will be back with the first video of 2022 next week, which will be all the movies that I watched in 2021. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want more details on all the TV shows I talked about, you should definitely check out the Medium article in the description of this video. Happy New Year! Thanks for watching!